I'm Amina, 27, and chronically designated as the fixer in my Black American family. My older sister Brie had been trying on gowns at Maison Éclat Bridal Studio in River North, Chicago, sunlight pouring through the big windows like it was blessing her moment. I was lifting a beaded veil from its velvet sleeve when her palm met my cheek. Clean, shocking, and public. The room did that quiet, nosy thing. Cousins stared at their shoes, the associate's smile dropped, and Belle pointed toward the door. Leave. You're messing up my moment. What she didn't know, and what no one in that bright boutique understood, was that her moment had been funded by me for months. I'd paid the rush planner's retainer, the outdoor engagement brunch by the river, the floral samples, the cake tasting, even the deposit at Willow Terrace Gardens, a sunny lawn venue on the city's edge that only books daytime ceremonies. Our parents told everyone they had it handled. Translation, they had me. I didn't cry. I set the veil down, walked out into a warm, breezy afternoon and pulled out my phone. One swipe to my banking app, and I shut off the card tied to Brielle's vendors. 30 seconds later, buzz. Transaction declined, $2,450 at Maison Éclat. Through the glass I watched the tiny theater. Brielle, lace spilling over her arms, waving my card. The associate tapping, the terminal blinking red. A second swipe. Another denial. The manager arrived, gentle but firm. Miss Holloway, we'll need the gown back until payment clears. Dethroning looks bad under skylights. By the time I reached the bus stop, my phone pulsed. Mom, Dad, Brielle, then Mom again, like a metronome. On the fourth call I answered. What did you do? Mom snapped. Your sister just got humiliated. I turned off my card, I said. That's all. You fix this right now. You told folks you'd pay, I said calmly. You meant I would. I have, since the outdoor engagement brunch. There was a shuffle, then Brielle's voice, sharp enough to cut a mirror. You're jealous, Amina. You think touching my wedding makes you matter? People choose me. For once, I answered, voice flat as pavement. You can choose the bill. Funding's closed. I hung up. The city slid by. Barbers outside laughing, a church sign promising Sunday hope, kids crossing with soccer balls under one arm. Relief arrived like cool shade. At 7:18 p.m., the first domino clicked. Payment overdue, Willow Terrace Gardens. Balance due within 48 hours or the outdoor reservation would be released. The invoice had my email on file, because of course it did. I forwarded it to Brielle and archived the thread. By late morning the next day, she rang again, already mid-accusation. The venue says the check bounced. What did you do? I stopped paying, I said. That's all. You can't. The ceremony is in 3 weeks. The caterer, the florist, the photographer. Then everyone can wait on you, I replied, taking my lunch outside on a park bench while food trucks perfumed the air and a boy practiced crossovers on warm concrete. My shoulders dropped an inch. The family group chat did its family thing. News, panic, blame. Cousin Terrence? Is the date still the 21st? I booked flights. Uncle Jay? Caterer says contract canceled. Somebody explain. A screenshot oozed into the thread. Final notice from a vendor. Typing bubbles danced, then vanished. By the third evening, word drifted in through my cousin Zaria, who knows everything without trying. Brielle had told Malik Turner, her fiancé, and his family that our parents were funding the wedding. Malik's mom received a courtesy call from the venue about updated payment arrangements and learned those parents were me. Around 9 p.m., a text from an unknown number. This is Malik. Can we talk? I stared at his name. The same man who was supposed to meet Brielle under willow branches and pale gold lanterns, outdoors by design because she wanted daytime photos with sky. I washed dishes, folded laundry, let my pulse settle, and replied, tomorrow after 6. He called exactly at 6. No small talk. Amina, were you paying for all of it? I leaned against my kitchen counter while the rice simmered low and the evening light softened to late-day honey over rooftops. Deposits, balances, late fees. I thought keeping peace meant covering costs. And your parents? Promised support. Outsourced it to me. He let out a slow breath. She told my mother her folks had the wedding. She told me money was handled. It was, until my cheek was a stage and I was told to leave. He went quiet long enough for the fridge's hum to sound like a metronome. When he spoke, his voice wasn't pleading, it was resolved. I can solve bills, he said. I won't build a marriage on lies. If she misled us about something this big, what else is dressed up as not a problem? That's between you and her, I said. I'm stepping out of the middle. Thank you for the truth. 10 minutes later, my phone caught fire. Belle in the family thread throwing sparks. Why are you talking to my man? Do not drag Malik into your bitterness. Dad. Family business stays in the family. Funny. I'd been the family ATM in plain daylight. I set the phone to do not disturb, ate at my little bistro table with the window open to sunshine and street sounds, washed my plate, and put on a face mask. Choosing myself arrived in small, ordinary rituals under a bright sky. That night, Zaria pinged. Girl, call me. Malik went to their house, she said when I did. Brought his mama. Asked for receipts. He had vendor statements with your name and card. His mother asked 2 questions. Why didn't you tell us? And what happens when the bills show up in marriage? Belle cried, then raged, then bingo carded back to tears. Then what? By nightfall, the engagement was on pause. By morning, it was broken. At 6:20 a.m., Belle called, broken open. I let it ring, she texted, you did this. I laced my shoes and ran outside, the sun lifting over the city like a gold coin. I typed back 3 words. I told truth. The venue released the lawn. The florist resold the date. The caterer tacked on a cancellation fee big enough to make you sit down. The group chat split into pity and side-eye. Mom posted a prayer hands emoji and a verse, then texted me separately. 1 card can end this, Amina. I already ended something. I wrote back. Me bankrolling disrespect on what should have been her wedding morning. A clear blue day wide as a bowl. I walked to the cut-rate hall. Belle had scrambled to book across town, purely to witness the math of boundaries. Empty tables under open sky, a bare rental platform, a woman in a headset moving folding chairs like pennants. Belle stood off to the side in a rented ivory dress that clung wrong, makeup patchy. Mom hovered, whisper scolding the staff. When Belle saw me, her mouth tightened. You came to admire your handiwork, she spat. I came to say it plainly so the story stops multiplying, I said, not raising my voice. I paid. Then I stopped. That's it. Relatives arrived in clusters, daytime outfits bright under the sun, aunties in jewel tones, uncles in 2 warm suits, cousins with gift bags and questions. Faces turned toward me like I was a sound they couldn't place, so I placed it for them, outside in the light. For months, I projected. Belle and our parents told folks the wedding was covered. Truth? I covered it. When my sister hit me and told me to leave, I stopped paying. That's why there's this. A hush rolled the way waves do when the wind changes. Mom's eyes flashed, then dimmed. Dad tried to pin the blame to my chest. This is on you, he said. It's on choices, I answered. Hers, yours, mine. I kept paying while I was disrespected. You kept asking. She kept pretending. Today is just the math. And then Malik walked up the path in a black suit that looked like a period at the end of a sentence. He faced us all, voice even. There won't be a wedding today, he said. I wish Belle healing and growth. I won't build on a foundation that isn't true. He set the ring box on a table like a final ledger entry. Then he and his parents left into the bright afternoon. I placed a sealed envelope on a chair, printouts of every payment I'd made, what was still owed back, and 1 line. Do not contact me about money again. I looked at my sister, furious, blotchy, and suddenly very small, and felt not triumph, just completion. Then I walked away, the sun on my face and my future finally not on layaway. If part 1 was the day I cut the cord, this is the week I learned how quiet can feel like sunlight. The house of cards collapsed in broad daylight. Vendors did their math, penalties hit. Willow Terrace Gardens kept the non-refundable slice and moved to the next couple in line. The florist posted a chirpy caption about lessons learned, with a side of scripture that felt an awful lot like shade. The caterer flipped the date to an outdoor corporate picnic that probably tipped in cash. The family group thread split like a sidewalk in summer. Half pity, half blame. Aunt Val dropped the only honest temperature check. The girl who tells the truth ain't the villain. The rest of them studied the floor like it had secrets. Belle vanished from the thread. Mom started posting devotionals like gauze over a wound. Dad went minimal, only chiming in when a bill arrived that he didn't know how to face without calling me. My life, meanwhile, got small in the best way. I cleaned my little place with the windows up and the sun riding the hardwood. Fresh sheets, slow vacuum lines like proof of order. I opened a savings account labeled Future Amina and set a modest automatic transfer for 9 a.m. every payday. Watching that first deposit slide in felt like turning a page. On Tuesday, I walked to a daytime cooking class a few blocks over. Comfort food, remixed, held on a cafe's back patio beneath a rectangle of blue sky. Ms. Ramsey, a silver-haired black woman with a laugh that could melt butter, taught us to roast sweet potatoes until they blushed and to dress kale like we loved it. I left smelling like lemon and garlic and texted Zaria a photo of my plate. "Look at you feeding yourself first," she wrote. I kept that message starred. Of course there were wobble moments. Mom called from an unfamiliar number, so I wouldn't screen it. "No hello, we're drowning," she blurted. "Light, gas, card minimums, all of it at once. If you could just—" "I'm sorry you're overwhelmed," I said, voice steady. "I'm not sending money." "You've turned hard," she whispered. "This isn't you." "This is exactly me," I said, surprised by how grounded it felt. Me without a wallet in my throat. She hung up. I set the phone down and let the ache pass like a cloud instead of chasing it with another transfer. Saturday at the outdoor farmer's market by the river, Aunt Val inspected tomatoes like they were gems. "Baby," she said, slipping cilantro into her tote, "every woman in this family has a day she stops paying to keep the peace. Most of us wait too long. You drew your line early enough to enjoy the years on the other side." "It feels lonely," I admitted. "It will," she nodded. That's the sound of leaving the crowd and meeting yourself. A week after the ring sat on a rental table like a final period, Malik texted once, midday, no drama. "I won't follow up again after this. I'm sorry for what you carried. Thank you for telling the truth instead of making it easier. Wishing you quiet good things." And I typed back a simple, "You too." The chapter clicked shut. News traveled the way it always does in big black families, under hairdryers and across porches. Brielle asked to meet with the pastor's wife. The pastor's wife said, "Therapy first." A cousin swore Brielle planned to pay me back once she's on her feet. The cousin then asked what "on her feet" meant. End scene. I kept choosing daytime rituals that didn't require explaining. Morning runs while the city yawned awake, lunch on a park bench, evenings practicing brown sugar salmon and citrus greens on my balcony. One night, stirring collards in a skillet, I realized the most dangerous part of my old life wasn't the money, it was the script I agreed to. I'm lovable when I give, valuable when I'm quiet, useful when I make other people look abundant. Turn off the money and the myth screams. Leave the myth, and the quiet tells the truth. Near month's end, Aunt Denise stopped me in the grocery aisle, peered over her readers, and said, "You look lighter." "I am," I said. "Keep it," she replied, like a blessing. The next afternoon, Dad finally texted something that wasn't a demand. "Your mother and I are figuring it out with Mr. Gaines. Weekend shifts." It wasn't an apology, but it was a step that didn't involve my debit card. For now, that was enough. Brielle stayed silent, maybe because silence is free when pride is expensive. I didn't chase her. I plated dinner at my thrifted table and ate slowly under plain daylight, remembering with each bite, I'm not a wallet. I'm a woman with both hands on her own life. Then, one bright Saturday, a white envelope slid under my door with Mom's careful cursive. Amina. Inside, 3 receipts and a note. "We're trying. Light bill paid. Gas on a plan. Your father's working weekends. I cooked at home all week. Not an apology, not a plea, but the receipts had their own handwriting. We can do what we used to ask you to do." I sent Aunt Val a photo. "See?" she wrote back. "Grown folks remember how to be grown when the subsidy stops." At the next patio class, Miss Ramsey tapped the rim of my plate. "You plate with care," she said. "Care is a skill. You ever think about a pop-up?" "Me? You?" she smiled. "Bring the same intention you used to rescue everybody else and feed folks instead." The idea scared me and thrilled me at the same time. I pulled a notebook and sketched in the sunshine. Sunday supper, comfort food remixed, 12 seats, sliding scale, outdoors only, greens with citrus, that brown sugar salmon I'd been perfecting, peach cobbler in jars, joy with a lid. I ran the numbers. Even if I sold half the seats, future Amina would still get her cut. I texted Zaria. "Say the word," she fired back, "and I'll have cousins, co-workers, and 2 church ladies who know everybody." I said the word. By the next afternoon, all 12 spots were gone. Right then, Brielle finally pinged me like we were co-workers. "Do you still have the vendor contacts for the engagement brunch?" I stared at the text and answered, "Ask Mom." I'm not a file cabinet anymore. Read. No reply. That evening, Dad called at golden hour. His voice didn't rush. It walked. Your mother showed me the envelope from the day. He cleared his throat. I knew you were helping. I didn't know it was that much. We sat inside a new kind of quiet. The kind where men who taught you to be tough remember you're also tender. He didn't say sorry. He didn't ask for money either. Gaines has me moving loads on Saturdays. It's honest. I hope it works out, I said, and meant it. A day later, a new post bloomed in the family thread. Brielle's first in weeks. A picture on a sunny sidewalk outside a temp agency. Simple blazer, no ring, tired eyes but open ones. Starting over. Pray for me. The comments piled up. You got this. Proud of you. I typed one word, strength. She tapped a heart. The sun was still out. The air felt light. For the first time in forever, tomorrow could be ordinary and still be good. The week rolled forward under a bright, uncomplicated sky. I kept my routine simple. Run, work, cook, save. The pop-up menu sat taped to my fridge like a promise. Sunday supper, comfort food, remixed. Outdoors, midday only. 12 seats, sliding scale. A lemon wedge sketched in the corner like sun. Then Mom texted, can we meet? Daytime. Somewhere public. We chose a cafe with a patio near the park where I run. Late morning light bounced off the metal tables. She arrived in church flats and folded her hands like she was bracing for communion or confession. I raised you to be a giver, she said finally, eyes softer than I'd seen all month. I forgot to raise you to be a keeper too. I didn't cry. I set my palm over hers, just for a breath. I'm learning both. I'm sorry, she whispered, the word catching. About the slap we blessed and the times we made you small so somebody else could feel big. There it was, the apology I hadn't even known how to want. It landed between us like something breakable and durable at once. I'm not rescinding my boundaries, I said gently. I know, she nodded. I came to respect them, not erase them. She slid an envelope across the table. Inside, a crisp $500 money order and a list titled What We Owe You, Our Plan. Not huge numbers, huge meaning. We'll send what we can when we can, she said. Not because you demanded it, because we owe it, and because we need to practice paying what we owe. It's your plan, I said, handing the list back. Keep it with you. Her mouth tilted into a wobbly smile. Your Nana swore you seasoned food with intention. You still doing that little dinner? Papa, I grinned. 12 seats, sunshine only. She'd be proud, Mom said, looking past me into the good weather like she could see Nana nodding. A day later, I watched the door at another sunny cafe patio, heart doing a careful shuffle. Brielle arrived 5 minutes late in a thrifted blazer I recognized from Aunt Denise's closet. No ring, no entourage, just a woman held together with bobby pins and breath. I don't know how to start, she said. Start plain, I told her. Not pretty. For once, there wasn't any spin in her eyes. I was ugly to you, she said. Not just that day. I liked being carried. I told myself I deserved it because I made things look good. I told myself you didn't mind. Then you stopped. And I learned the ground was your back. We sat with that. It was heavier than any invoice. I'm sorry, she said, voice small but steady, for the slap, for the lies, for letting them make you the wallet and me the princess. Apologies don't fix math, I said, but they balance other things. I nodded once. Thank you, she exhaled. I signed with a temp agency. I'm taking whatever. Phones, filing. I don't want your money. I want your blueprint. How do you keep the quiet from swallowing you? Rituals, I said. Morning sun, real food, automatic transfers. Tell the truth out loud and let loneliness talk until it says something useful. Stop managing what people think and manage your budget instead. I slid a folded card across the patio table. Notes I'd scribbled the night before. 3 accounts. Automatic transfers. A food budget you actually eat with. Bills before braids. She read, cracked a smile, then laughed. New sound, good sound. Drag me gently, I teased. We talked for an hour in the plain warmth of daytime, not as the old roles, carrier and cargo, but as 2 black women trying to relearn each other without debt. When we stood, she pulled a wrinkled envelope from her bag. It's not much, she said, embarrassed. $40, first of many. I wrote it on the corner 'cause I'm corny now. You keep it, I said, sliding it back. Buy a weekly bus pass so you don't swipe a card you don't need. Pay me back by changing. That's the payment that sticks. Her eyes brightened. We hugged like cousins meeting at a reunion, careful, hopeful, daytime kind. Back home, the The sun filled my little kitchen like a friendly neighbor. Miss Ramsey texted, "Need a sous chef for your pop-up? I'll come early and plate." Aunt Val chimed in, "I'm bringing grocery store flowers and making them look like a miracle." Zaria, "Seats are asking for wait list. You fancy now." I laid out jars for cobbler, simmered citrus for the greens, and practiced timing so the salmon would hit plates lacquered and warm. The pop-up wasn't just a meal. It was a proof of life lived in the open. No secrets, no subsidy, all sun. On my phone, one new message blinked from Dad. "Gaines has me moving freight on Saturdays." "It's honest." I typed back, "Proud of you." He sent a thumbs up, plain, unadorned, enough. The forecast promised clear skies for Sunday. I set 12 plates on the counter and lined up forks like soldiers at ease. Boundaries had cost me a wedding I never asked for. In return, they gave me a table that was finally mine to set. The morning of the pop-up broke bright and friendly. The kind of Chicago day that makes strangers nod like cousins. I hauled folding tables down to the courtyard behind my building. Brick walls, climbing ivy, a square of sky so blue it felt staged. By 11 a.m., the grill hissed like it had opinions, and the breeze kept flipping the corners of my hand-lettered menu. Sunday supper, comfort food, remixed, outdoors, midday only. Ms. Ramsey arrived first, apron already tied, laugh already warm. "Let's plate like we mean it," she said, tapping a stack of white dishes. Aunt Val followed with grocery store blooms she arranged into something that looked like a florist had prayed over it. Zaria checked the guest list with a clipboard I'm pretty sure she stole from her job. By noon, all 12 seats were full. Church hats and hoop earrings, crisp button-downs and wrap dresses, every shade of our people shining in daylight. I called folks to the table, and the courtyard hushed the way a room does when it remembers it's about to be fed. We started with greens, brightened with lemon, then brown sugar salmon, lacquered to a tender gloss, roasted sweet potatoes that tasted like autumn, pulling up a chair. Glass pitchers of iced tea caught the sun and threw it back. People took a bite, closed their eyes, and hummed the old hymn, "All Good Seasoning Invites." Mom slipped in quiet, carrying a skillet of cornbread so golden the edges looked like they were lit from inside. She set it down, took a breath, and slid into a seat next to Aunt Denise. Dad came later, less linebacker, more man on his second morning shift, hands nicked from work, pride sober and simple. He didn't ask for anything. He just ate, nodded, and said, "Good." We kept it easy, no speeches, just food and air and laughing loud enough to make the ivy listen. Still, near dessert, Mom cleared her throat and raised her glass of tea. "To Amina," she said, voice wobbling, "for feeding folks with a full plate and an even fuller backbone." The table applauded, a daytime kind of thunder. Heat climbed my cheeks. Not stove heat, something softer. After the last jar of peach cobbler found a home, and the chatter thinned to a satisfied murmur, I stacked plates while Miss Ramsey lined up spoons like a tiny parade. That's when Belle slipped into the courtyard. No fanfare, no ring, thrift store blazer catching the sun. She didn't ask for eyes. She grabbed a clean towel, headed to the wash station, and started rinsing like she'd trained for it. "I got a position," she said after a while, sleeves wet to the elbows. "Permanent, not cute money yet, but mine." "That's the best kind," I said, handing her another tray. We worked in a silence that used to be impossible. She was slower than me, but she didn't quit. That counted like math. When the last dish air-dried on its rack, she turned and faced me, worry pulling at the corners of her mouth. "When I can do it without borrowing or bargaining," she said carefully, "I want to throw something for you. Not a sacrifice story, just a daytime celebration full of people who know you're more than what you give." "Maybe," I said, because I believed her, and because promises stay truer when they're small enough to hold. We folded the tables together, the courtyard still warm with the smell of butter and citrus. Dad carried chairs back 2 at a time. Mom tucked the skillet into her tote. Miss Ramsey squeezed my shoulder and whispered, "Your care shows." The sun slid an inch across the bricks, and the day stayed bright without me lighting it on fire. Back upstairs, I labeled leftovers and packed 2 portions with sticky notes, for Mom and Dad. Belle washed her hands, wiped the counters, and glanced at the taped menu on my fridge. "You really did this," she said, half surprised, half proud. "No," I said, smiling. "We did." On my phone, a ping, "Future Amina, scheduled transfer posted. Right on time, ordinary, exact." I leaned against the counter and let the quiet fill the room like good perfume. Nothing chasing me. Nothing due. For the first time in a long time, my life felt plated with intention and eaten in the sun. If the first chapter of this story could be called The Day I Cut the Cord on a Fairy Tale, the last is just sunshine doing what it does, showing everything as it is and still letting us grow. A week after the pop-up, I set up a folding table at the neighborhood park for lunch, paper cloth snapping in the breeze, 2 plates, 2 bottles of water sweating in honest daylight. Belle arrived right on time, simple blazer, clean sneakers, edges laid like she was showing respect to the moment. She held a notebook and a plain envelope. "I brought my plan," she said, sitting across from me under the open sky. "Income, bills, savings, and a line called No More Pretend." She grinned, a little shy, a little proud. "You were right, rituals beat wishes." We walked through her numbers like 2 mechanics bent over a good engine. Bus pass first, groceries next, the smallest debt snowballed 5% to a tiny savings jar she named Future Bri, because she wanted to match me on the path. Then she slid the envelope across the table. Inside was $60 and a handwritten ledger. First repayment. Every 2 Fridays. Not grand, not performative. Real. "That's not why I'm here," I said, tapping the notebook. "This is why." "I know," she nodded, "but I want both, the change and the math." We ate cold pasta salad and laughed like cousins while strollers rolled by and a little boy practiced penalty kicks on the grass. She told me about the temp job going permanent. I told her the pop-up waitlist had grown. We traded recipes for thrift and menus for joy. A breeze lifted the paper cloth and laid it back down like a blessing. On Sunday, I hosted Sunday supper again. Same courtyard, same blue square of sky, same rule, outdoors, midday only. Mom came early with sliced peaches. Dad carried chairs without being asked. Ms. Ramsey checked my plating like a proud auntie. Aunt Val tucked another miracle of grocery store flowers into jam jars. We fed 12 more people. They hummed in that way our people do when spice meets memory. Near the end, Dad stood, sunlight catching the silver at his temples. "I won't make a speech," he said, chuckling. "But I will say I'm learning what it means to handle our own business." He raised a glass of tea toward Mom. "We're late to it, but we're coming." Mom squeezed his hand and looked over at me, eyes clear. No performative guilt, no pressure, just daylight honesty. After the guests left, Belle stayed to break down the tables. She rinsed, I dried. She folded, I stacked. When we were done, she pulled out her notebook again and flipped to a page labeled, "Boundaries I Respect." "You on there twice," she said. "That's the only 2 I need," I smiled. We wheeled the last bus tub to the kitchen, and she paused at the doorway. "I liked the story where I was shiny and you were useful," she said quietly. "I'm writing a new one, where we're both responsible and still loved. We can keep editing," I told her, "in the sun." That night, I labeled containers for Mom and Dad, slid 2 jars of cobbler into a tote for Aunt Val, and took a long breath at the window while the courtyard cooled. The slap from the boutique belonged to an old script. The canceled wedding belonged to an old budget with my name on it. What remained was the life I'm building like a careful plate. Greens that bite back, salmon that shines, peaches that promise tomorrow. My phone buzzed once. Future Amina. Transfer posted. Ordinary. Exactly on time. I smiled because ordinary is a kind of miracle when your piece used to cost overdraft fees. I am not a wallet. I am a Black woman who believes daylight heals what it reveals. Boundaries are my love letter with my name at the top, and now at last, everyone in my story can read. If this story touched you, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful, real-life inspired stories.